So we're really, really excited to have you. I noticed that we saw like a couple people have joined, which is really exciting. I don't really know Instagram names, so I don't know if any of them students. I saw someone who is also going to be in a coffee chat later this semester, so that's really exciting.
Very.
But yeah, if we just wanted to get started, if you wanted to tell me kind of a little bit about you, what you do, what you're currently doing, that kind of stuff.
Sure, sure. So, I guess, so my name is Rachel Martin, and I graduated from Goucher in 2014. My degree was in communication and media studies, but I think like a lot of liberal arts grads, I didn't really continue in that field. I've kind of switched fields since graduating. And so now I am working on my PhD in education and specifically educational psychology at Washington University in St. Louis.
What are you planning to do with sort of an education psychology degree? Like, are you going to work in schools or what's your plan?
Sure. So it probably would help to give a little bit of my background, like what I've been up to since graduating from Goucher. So right after I graduated, I took a job as an admission counselor at another small private liberal arts college, very similar to Goucher in Austin, Texas. And what I loved most about that job as an admission counselor was getting to work with the students. At Goucher, I'd been on the orientation committee and done some other work with first year students, which I really loved. And that continued as an admission counselor. But I realized I really needed a master's degree in order to kind of do more of the work that I was interested in, working one-on-one with students, probably in some sort of academic success capacity. So I applied for master's programs, and educational psychology just seemed like it was a good fit because I was curious about how we can help college students learn better. So I earned my master's degree in ed psych from the University of Texas at Austin. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do a variety of jobs, work as a career coach, do research, and that really inspired me to continue on with my PhD, which is what I'm doing now. And so I hope to, there are so many things that you can do with a PhD that I think a lot of people think, okay, you have to go be a professor, and that's certainly what a lot of people do. But specifically in education, there are a lot of opportunities to work on the administrative side of either K-12 or in higher ed. So right now, I'm most interested in working in the higher ed space, particularly in student success, wellness, academic success, and just trying to help students succeed, but also kind of stay well while they are succeeding.
Very cool. That sounds interesting to say the least, and definitely not the path I would have anticipated for like entering higher ed, but very cool to see how you're taking a PhD and doing something a little bit differently than how most people would assume a PhD goes. So you said you were a communications major, correct? I heard that right?
Yes.
At Goucher? How has that helped you to get into this? Were there certain people you communicated with to try to plan for that? I know that you said you went into working at another high-end institution before you started getting your master's and then your PhD. So is there a reason you went through that track, or that's sort of what was available to you at the time?
Sure. So, I think what Goucher teaches everyone is how to write and how to think critically, first and foremost. And those are absolutely the skills that are needed in graduate school. So in a lot of ways, the subject matter, so like I'm studying communications and media studies, what was more important were the foundational skills that I was gaining in writing, reading, critical thinking, and collaborating with other people. And so I had a number of internships that were really interesting while I was at Goucher, but I would say that the most impactful experiences were the experiences I had with the Student Affairs Division as a member of the orientation committee and what was at that time called, I'm not sure what it's called now, but I think it's like first year experience now.
Yeah, I think it's called the same.
Yeah, there was like a course that we had for first year students to help kind of ease students into their transition. And so my mentors in the field of student affairs were just so important in being able to kind of successfully make the transition just out of Goucher. Just to be fully transparent, I did apply for graduate school right out of Goucher. and I was rejected from graduate school. So that was a very normal experience to have, and I definitely want to normalize that for people. But it felt really, devastating at the time, and I wasn't sure what I should really do. I kind of had that, end of the year, end of senior year kind of crisis about what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this uncertainty? And it was really the staff mentors that I had who kind of guided me through that experience and encouraged me to just, make the best decision that I could at the time. And I didn't think I wanted to work in admissions forever, but it seemed like a really good first step, and it was. And so I think I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I had applied, obviously, but I also felt like there was a real benefit to going into the workforce and really deciding what I wanted to do, and not pigeonhole myself into a particular field that I wasn't quite sure about. So the 2 years that I spent in between finishing undergrad and going into my master's was so critical to me in figuring out what I really wanted to do, and not avoiding spending a lot of money on a graduate degree that I maybe didn't really want or wasn't really going to use. But that's a very long-winded answer. But basically, I think I've tried to make, and this was my advice that I gave to you to share, was just, you have to make, I think, the best decision that you can at the time, and know that, that's all we can do. This is all the information that we have. So you kind of have to make the best next move that you can, and trust yourself that you'll kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I definitely think that's great advice, especially for someone who I'm a senior and I'm applying to graduate school, but also it's a really tough place to get in, for sure. And knowing that taking some time away, maybe if I don't get in, to do some focusing on work in the field to figure out if this is actually what I want, if this is what I'm interested. It's really great to hear that's been a positive experience for you, and that you've been able to sort of grow from there and because of that experience. And that there are different ways to approach this, especially during COVID, because you mentioned being kind of flexible and adapting and making the best choices you can right now. A lot of us are in weird positions. We're at home, we're learning from home, we're trying to start a new phase of our life from our houses or from where we grew up, and that can be really hard, and making decisions from there can also be really hard. So I'm really glad that you've shared that with our students. The other thing you mentioned was you did some internships. Our office, I guess, help students get credit for those internships. What sort of things did you get involved in while you were at Goucher?
Yeah, so I think this is something to normalize too, that like when I entered college, I was 100% sure that I wanted to be a journalist. And there were at the time, so many of my peers who were excellent writers and have gone on to be journalists at amazing publications. Like, we see their names everywhere. And shout out to Jackie Pizer. She's particularly who I'm thinking of, and she and I were the same year, and she's now at the Washington Post. And so I had the opportunity to learn with these people who were really passionate about journalism with me. And so I did a number of internships in the field. I interned at the Baltimore Sun, and I did another internship as kind of more of like a marketing type internship at a local nonprofit. And what I learned through those things was that wasn't the right field for me, that wasn't something that I was interested in continuing to pursue. And so I think that is, again, just a really, like, internships are very important in realizing what you want to do, but also what you don't want to do. And kind of, again, just taking each experience, learning from it, and trying to figure out, okay, this is what I liked about this job, and this is what I didn't like. So for my next job, I'm going to look for more of the things that I liked.
How did you manage sort of, I did this internship, found out this isn't something I'm really interested, and moving into, okay, so I've graduated, or at least like I'm pretty close to graduating. Maybe I don't have enough time to do another internship, or maybe I'd really like to get a quote unquote real job. Not that internships aren't a great way to bridge between college and the real world. But how did you manage, like, I know I don't like this and I want to move into something else, but taking that step of going, I don't even know if the next step's right for me, but I think it is. So how did you kind of manage that?
With a lot of help from a lot of wonderful people at Goucher. I mean, I think a lot of people have this type of experience when they're in college, that you get into something, it's not quite right, or it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be. And in my case, I didn't realize it until quote unquote it was too late, that I wanted to just continue with my major, and I didn't want to switch majors at that point. I was getting ready to study abroad, and that sort of thing. And so, I think I utilized a lot of the resources that Goucher had. I'm sorry, now I'm not familiar with all the terminology, but the career development office at the time. And again, just some really great staff and faculty mentors who were willing to have those hard conversations with me, and also just kind of sit with me in the uncertainty of like, yeah, this is really hard. And, you don't know exactly what you want to do. And also that's really normal. And many people who are, quote, real adults who are 20 years into their career also don't really know what they want to do, that there is this evolution that we all go throughout our lives. And we're going to have different desires at different times. We're going to have different needs. We're going to have different values. And so you really can only make this best decision for you right now. But no, I'm not going to pretend it was really hard. There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of sitting in offices and like eating donuts. Like that is the process, But I think that Goucher was absolutely the place that was right for me to go through that, because it had this very supportive environment and people who were willing to kind of sit with me and invest in me in that way.
We're really glad to hear that you used your office at like our office, and also some of the other people available to you, Goucher, to sort of manage that. I've been in the same position. I've done the whole running into my advisor's office crying because something just didn't work the way it was supposed to, or, oh my gosh, I did this crazy internship and I didn't like it. So similar situation, we really do encourage our students to talk to us in the career. We're the career education office now. Little tiny name change. Exciting. And we're also in what we call the hub. So we manage both the career education office. We've had a slight name change to the Office of International Studies that I can't quite remember off the top of my head. And we also have CBL, community-based learning, in our office now. So you did mention that you did some study abroad. Where did you go? I just came back from mine. But I was saying that I've come off of a year, not quite a year, at the University of Oxford. And I got sent home a term early. So I should have been there March through June. And I got sent home kind of end of March, April, that kind of situation. So it was great. It was amazing and completely life-changing, completely changed the career path I think I'm like looking for myself. I don't know if your study abroad was potentially a similar experience. Where did you go?
So I spent a semester in Prague in the Czech Republic.
Ooh. That was on my list of places to visit. Actually, I was supposed to go there the week after I emergency flew home.
No.
But I've heard it's beautiful.
Yes, it was. It was very special to me because my grandfather was born in then Czechoslovakia. And so I kind of had a family tie to that region. And so I was very excited to go there. And I did since I was there for a whole semester, I really felt like I was living there, and I got to know some of the language. And yes, it was a very special experience. And I think just critical in my development as becoming an independent adult, and just kind of gaining the resilience skills, needed to be so far away from my family and far away from Goucher, and to realize that, you can make a home for yourself in other countries and other places. And then, of course, I'm sure you have this experience too, just meeting people from all over and forming friendships with all of, these people who are from all over the place, and people that I'm still in touch with, today.
Yeah, study abroad. I met, probably I'd consider her my best friend now.
Yeah.
Super close. It's just also an experience. You're all kind of across the ocean together. And yes, there were some like people from the UK and other countries in my program, but for the most part, us visiting students kind of grouped together because we were all kind of in the same position. We were older than most of the students at the university we were studying at, and we all happened to be kind of alone across the world. Our homes and what we're used to is so far away, and I feel like that's such a great way to get to know people really fast.
Yes.
Little like homesickness breakdowns here and there.
Exactly.
But you meet some very incredible people studying abroad. And you mentioned the resiliency, and I think that's so important, having come back right in the middle of this pandemic. And I know a lot of other people who have studied abroad. It's a little weird to have so much freedom and then come home and live in your childhood home and try to do school from there. But at the same time, I feel like we're so much more adaptable after that, having gone to a different place and studied things a bit differently than we do in the US. Definitely a good way to come off of it.
Yeah.
And get into the workforce, or even just into your senior year, doing all these applications, applying to graduate school, like you said, and applying to jobs. Like, I feel like a lot of those skill sets were strengthened studying abroad, if you'd agree.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to like name how tough this must be for seniors right now. Like the idea of applying for jobs in graduate school while you're also, you know, remote and you're away from your friends and that type of support system. Like, you guys are so resilient. And I think that the skills that you're kind of learning right now are going to be so critical for your success in the workplace, but also like this is just really hard. And so I know that I'm sure that Goucher is offering, you know, tons of support and services and things like that, but also just, you know, you talked about how there's the camaraderie involved in studying abroad when there are other people who are also going through that similar experience, being so far away from their families. And I think similarly, you know, what really got me through, especially second semester, senior year, when there was just so much uncertainty. What are we going to do? Where am I going to work? You know, am I going to have to move home? Was just being vulnerable with my friends and leaning on each other, and that we were going through the same thing. You know, even if one person did have a job or one person was going to grad school, there was still this, like, we were in it together still. And I think that is just absolutely what kind of got me through that tough transition time. And after, you know, for the first couple of months after college too, just leaning on each other, really maintaining that connection and remembering, like, I'm not alone. Everyone's going through this. It's a little bit different for everyone, but it's still tough, and we can kind of support each other through that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel like things are going now, with everyone kind of stuck at home or dealing with this in a different way. Like, we're all kind of leaning on each other. We still have each other to get through this. We have ways of, oh, how did your Zoom meeting go today? Or how do you pay attention during your 2-hour-long Zoom class with a professor you don't like? Like, things like that are very similar. Like, we're really leaning on each other to get through this. That kind of thing. But how has COVID impacted your studies? Because I know you're still, like, writing your PhD. Do you do it a lot from home to start with, or has it completely changed the way that you tend to maybe do your research or, like, interact with your professors?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely had an impact. Like other institutions, we've gone pretty much entirely remote since March. And so, you know, a lot of similarities, I think, to what students at Goucher are experiencing. I'm trying, you know, learning how to take classes online, and just like you were saying, how do you pay attention for 2 hours on a Zoom? Like, that's really hard. And so I'm kind of in the I still take a couple of classes, but then also I'm an assistant instructor, or what we would think of as a TA. So there have also been, you know, I'm working with the lead instructor to figure out, how do we make our class be more interesting and compelling and compatible for an online learning environment that you are with us in a call, or who might be watching later, you know. So I'm kind of getting to see it a little bit from both sides, which is interesting. The challenges of teaching in a remote challenging. So that's kind of been, but in some ways, a very exciting opportunity to think about, you know, that I get to be on one side and be like, oh, I have a 4-hour seminar and it was not good, not do things like that, you know, and then, but realize how, but we could do something like this, which I think would be, and what else is
it's really interesting
changed
to
in
hear
terms
the
of
other
my
side.
research. And it's, I think it allows me to have just empathy for the faculty.
Yeah, for sure. Because sometimes we like to think, oh, they're just on the other side of the screen. This isn't a big change for them. But it really is. It's a big change for them, too. And it's interesting that you're getting to experience that from the other lens.
Yes, that's been really a great opportunity, and it's been really fun because it is kind of a new challenge, and I see it as just like like I said, an exciting opportunity to figure out how to engage students even more in the material that we're trying to teach them.
Yeah, that's really cool. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, but you're starting to talk about your research.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, sure. In terms of my research, I think that data collection, collect data has changed a little bit. We can't do, obviously, in-person interviews or things like that, but I have just been so impressed with our ability to leverage technology. Like that overall, I think in terms of COVID in general, I've just been honestly shocked at how analyzed technology was before, and even in my personal life. And I think that we've really been able to see innovative ways that people are still doing research, collecting data, talking to people in this time. So again, it hasn't really like impacted me all that much in terms of research, just changed the way that we might access participants or talk to people and get our data.
I'm glad to hear it hasn't had too bad of a negative impact. If maybe it's even been a little bit positive, helping you utilize that technology a little bit better than you would have before. It could be particularly helpful depending on how your research is focused and how you utilize the sources you have.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's sometimes like it expands access, because we're not thinking in such narrow terms about what it means to recruit students to participate in a study or whatever. We have a much wider access because we're leveraging the technology, which I think is also really exciting.
Yeah. It's exciting for me too. I'm like, yay, there's so much more online. There's so much more accessible because many sources have brought their materials online to make access to students, like textbooks or this right now. We usually host in person with coffee and donuts. Unfortunately, I can't virtually send those to you. But this is usually like a group discussion with a lot of students, and it's a lot easier, I feel like, to approach in person. Just sit down and they're right there, and you walk by, you can kind of overhear the conversation. So we're hoping to bring it kind of into a low scare environment, like low risk. Students can kind of just pop on, see what's going on, leave if they want. Nobody really knows they were here with the virtual coffee chat. And we're really getting the chance to hopefully engage with people who, like, I'm not exactly sure where you're calling in from today. I probably should have asked in the beginning. But maybe you wouldn't have been able to come to Goucher and do this originally because you're not geographically near us, which is really cool.
Yes, I live in St. Louis, Missouri. So you're right. I would not have been able to come in and see people in person. So I'm excited too that there are other ways to engage as an alumna and kind of still get to chat with students even though I'm far away.
Yeah, because we love to interact with our alumni. I know personally I've gotten some really great connections through some Goucher alums. And it's less scary to talk to someone, I guess, closer in age to you than maybe someone who's been working in the industry for forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally get that. And I have found, when I was a student or even after, that connecting with alums is just so fulfilling and fun to just see what folks are doing. And again, just how careers, what paths people follow. Because I think in general, careers are just not linear. And
not at all.
And they're just not. And we think that they're gonna be. And so to hear from other people that, okay, your career wasn't linear either, it can kind of make you feel good. And then, yeah, I'm especially happy to talk to any students who are thinking about graduate school. I've now, applied for graduate school twice, 2 different times, and been in grad school for a long time now, many, many years. So I'm always happy to talk to any student who want to chat about anything.
I'm super excited about that. And I won't keep you any longer because I know we are getting close to time, but thank you again for joining us and for being part of this.
Thanks for having me. It would be I'd love to hear from Goucher students and chat with you guys more. So this has been such a delight. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.